podcast where I am your host, Sha'ir Yeshub Judah, sitting alongside of Oxafaya Sheoku. We're going to do it like we always do on every day that the Greeks call Thursday. We're going to have ourselves a great show. And if you have not done it yet, I ask that you will take time out and subscribe to the show and also hit that like button. With that being said, let's prepare ourselves to be edified. Check the me's, man, they about to get their blast on. Prophecy, interpretation, Isaiah 55:11, so it ain't no faking. Crack your dough, it's getting close. I'm here to tell you, just in case you didn't know. Listen, man, in case you didn't know, no, it's almost getting close. In case you didn't know, no, it's on Unraveling. Babylon got pregnant with a daughter. Shalom, Israel. First of all, let me say all praises to the Most High for allowing me to be here today. It's been 2 weeks since we had a show, so I am kind of, amped up for this one here. As you can see, I am by myself. Just keep Oxify in prayer, him and his family. He will be joining me back as soon as possible. I may look into having some guest appearances of people who would want to sit in and help out with the show while Oxify do, some of the things that he has going on in his life. But other than that, it's going to be me. So, and this is a show that runs on two people. So I hope that I don't be too hard on your ears. But we do have a lot of great news that is in store. I want to read something from the book of Habakkuk, in this chapter 2. And I want to read this because it kind of set the tone for what this show is going to be about. This is chapter 2, verses 12 through 14, and it says, "Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. Behold, is it not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves in the very vanity, for very vanity? For the earth shall be filled with knowledge of the glory of Ahiah, as the waters covers the sea." The first part of that here in Habakkuk, woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and established a city with iniquity. The people of America have not only built a town with blood or established a city with iniquity, they have built a whole country in blood, built a whole country in iniquity. There's a lot that went on last week. This is why I entitled this Executive Orders. There's a lot going on. We talked briefly about it last night on the Light Hebrew News. I want to give a shout out to Sister Delta for allowing me to sit down with her and to break bread with her. We talked a little bit about it last night in the time that we're in and how so many people think that we're going back to normalcy. You don't see as many mask wearers now. You don't hear about, them telling you to get the cocktail as much now, but there are other things that are happening. War has been waged on all humanity. And the thing about war is that it's fought in different levels. A war is never won without fighting small battles. And so the first part of this declaration of war, which occurred to all humanity, which was 2 years ago, it was the mental part of the battle when they locked us all up in the house. They had us staring at the four walls and they had everybody scared to go outside. This was the mental part. They was breaking people down. Now they done moved to the economic part of the battle. They are beginning to go up on prices on everything. Grocery stores are beginning to have shortages of groceries and essentials and things like this. And they gave you a small scope of what it would be like when all of the toilet tissue was gone. See, we tend to forget things like this. We tend to forget. But there is nothing that is happening right now that is happening that is not being strategically put in place. The mental part of the battle, they started. Now they move into the economic part of the battle. And just last week, I don't know how many people saw it in between March Madness and in between all of the other TV shows that everybody watch and in between the hot topics when it come to entertainers. I don't know how many people actually saw it for themselves, but Biden, the president that the people put in, he just made a declaration that there's going to be a food shortage. And what's interesting about this is that I seen it with my own two eyes. I was talking, it was me, my family, and a friend. We was sitting up talking, and we was talking about things that we need to put in the house, things that we need to buy in the event that these types of things happen. And the individual that was with us looked at me and was looking at me actually as if I was talking crazy. And I was like, why are you looking at me like that? They said, well, why you got to buy all of this type of stuff? And I said, because the day you go into Walmart and there won't be any food. And they went on about their business. Then they came back and said, Walmart is always going to have food. So many people believe that. So many people believe that Walmart is always going to have food, that Kroger is always going to have food, that HEB is always going to have food. So many people believe that. And why so many people believe that is beyond me when the handwriting is on the wall that it is all unraveling right before our eyes. One of the main reasons people are not believing it is because they don't want to believe it. We have this habit of psyching ourselves out that if I don't think about it, then it's not going to happen. But that's far from the truth. It is going to happen. President Biden just last week warns the people that there is going to be a shortage of food. In the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war, it's going to be real. And you got so many people that is all up in arms, expressing how they can't believe that Putin is doing what he's doing to Ukraine, and they really don't know what the issues are that is going on over there, because America, for some reason, have made us believe that we got to be in everybody's business. What's going on over there belongs over there. Let them handle theirs and let us handle ours over here. But the problem is that America is putting all of these sanctions on Russia, which are punishments for what they're doing to Ukraine. And everybody is okay with that, but what they not realizing that the sanctions that America is putting on Russia is having a great effect on our economy here in America. Russia and Ukraine both are heavy wheat distributors to the world. This is where you get a lot of your breads from. So if you put sanctions on Russia, then a lot of things that we enjoy here in America, we're not going to be able to enjoy. So how is it that you are punishing the bear and you starving the eagle? Make it make sense to me. This is the reason why when you go to the gas pump, gas is $3.89 a gallon. Because of the sanctions that America is putting on Russia. And at the same time, which is a whole nother topic, America is promising the Ukrainians that we're going to give them fuel from our reserve. So you're going to give the Ukrainians fuel from our reserve while your own people are over here paying almost $4 a gallon for gas. Make it make sense to me. If you have not started stocking your shelves, you need to. Don't wait until it happens. Be proactive on this. Don't react. Be proactive on this. This is the time. This is the same time when Joseph had the dream of the 7 lean cows and the 7 fat cows, and he explained to Pharaoh what it meant. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. We are about to go into a time of famine, people. They're moving the strategic concept of war to economics now, and then it's going to be foods. And you have not understood the evilness of man's heart until he sees that he cannot be able to get the foods that he needs to feed himself and his family. This is why Yasha made the statement that in the times that we're in, if they were not cut short, the very elect would not make it. This is why he made the statement that the love of many is waxing cold. It's going to be a dog world out here. And the government is the very one that is behind it. They are setting this thing up to collapse. Whether we believe it or not, whether we want to accept it or not, whether we it don't matter. This is happening. This is the times that we are in. From the very start of the whole COVID ordeal, we were at the beginning of the end. Just last week, President Biden warned that there is going to be a food shortage because of the sanctions that they are putting on Russia. So again, I tell you that if you are not stocking your shelves, there's no need. So many people are still trying to buy houses and all kinds of stuff. Those days are over. By no means am I saying don't try to get money, because money is power. The Bible tells us that. We're going to need money. We're going to need some type of currency, something that we can trade, whether it's the money that we already have or the money that is coming about. We're going to need some type of a power in order for us to do what we need to do. But the time of thinking about getting rich, those days are over. They are bringing everybody to the same playground. The needy. And once you were there, you're going to see how much of a dragon this country really is. You're going to see. We got a great show lined up. We're going to talk about lynching. We're going to talk a little bit about lynching, just racism in America, something that a lot of people feel like don't exist anymore, right? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the executive order that Biden called for last week about the central bank digital currency. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well, because it's important that we know what's going on with the monies. Like I said, they are waging war on the people. And for those who watch this show, I would like for you to be edified and understand what type of war that is being waged on us. Right now, we're going to go to our music break. This is a brand new one by our sister Yapa Q featuring Lorvins. It's called Hallelujah. And when we come back, we're going to continue on with the show.
Call me Little Bo Beep, I'm out here shining. For the lost sheep, I'm out here grinding. Ain't talking cheese, I'm out here mining. Looking for diamonds, kingdom business, I'm mining. Trying to wake you up from the lullaby rhyming. Devil all my everything. Yeah, get that. You keep my soul from the flame. You even know my name. Yeah. You will reign. Hallelujah. 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 Breaking news. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Get down. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We the Jews. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah. Hallelujah. 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 Talk to 'em. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah. Baptism. Baptism. Jumping out the water like free willing. Rolling with Christ, no free willing. We feel it sinning, you roll different. Ooh, ooh, son of man. Ain't like us, you move different. They don't like us, we move with them. Yeah. No Oscars, we act different. Got good news, I'ma give it to you. Giving out praise to the Most High. Got the victory, no night. Seeing it popping like a whole sprite. Good news, I'ma give it to you. Yeah. Got the victory, no night. Seeing it popping like a whole sprite. You, all my everything. Yeah, get that. You keep my soul from the flame. You even know my name. Yeah. You will reign. Hallelujah. 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 Breaking news. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Get down. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We the Jews. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah. Hallelujah. 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 Talk to 'em. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah. Time is running out, it's almost over. Once I waking up, we taking over. I esteem above myself, my brothers. And I love the way my sisters shine, they them daughters. We here now, all esteem to the Most High. It's our time, put your garment off for the showdown. Repent now, and no salvation from the ZCs. The kingdom is here, and it's all up in your mouth. You, all my everything. Yeah, all my everything. You keep my soul from the flame. You even know my name. You know my name. You will reign. Hallelujah. Breaking news.
All right. We are back. That is your Q, Lorvins, and Hallelujah. That joint there is fire. It really is. It really, really is. But let's keep it going. Let's keep the show going. We started with Biden. We gonna continue with Biden. Also, just earlier this week, matter of fact, this article came out yesterday. Something that he did. And this is where you start understanding the difference between your house Negroes and your field Negroes. You're going to understand what I'm talking about when the article come up. All of these people that sitting around biting this white man as he signed this piece of paper right here, these are what you would call your gatekeepers. These are the people who are being paid to handle the rest of us, to make sure that all of us are put in line. These are the ones that are sitting there that they use to talk out in front to make him look as if what it is that he is doing is such a grand thing, to get those that are sitting at home while they watch this to clap and be like, man, this is a beautiful thing, and I knew that it would come. Biden signs a bill making lynching a federal hate crime into law. Now, in theory, that sounds great. That sounds great in theory. I mean, why shouldn't lynching be a federal hate crime? Especially with the history that we know that lynching has. In fact, the Bible tells us that any man that hangs from a tree is cursed. No man is hung from a tree more than us as a people. The populous tree is a tree that only grows in North America. Think about that. It is a tree that only grows in North America, in the south of North America at that. And this was the tree that was featured in the song Strange Fruit. Hanging from a populous tree. So here Biden on March 30th, 2022, around all of the gatekeepers, he signs a bill into law that makes lynching a federal hate crime, and acknowledging how racial violence has left a lasting scar on the nation, as asserting that these crimes are not a relic of bygone era. At a White House Rose Garden signing ceremony, the president didn't hold back in describing the history of racial violence experienced by Black Americans and continued impact. He said lynching was pure terror to enforce the lie that not everyone belongs in America. Not everyone is created equal. Terror to systematically undermine hard-fought civil rights. Terror, not just in the dark of the night, but in the broad of daylight. Innocent men, women, and children hung by nooses in trees, bodies burned, drowned, and castrated. Their crimes? Trying to vote, trying to go to school, trying to own a business or preach the gospel. False accusations of murder, arson, robbery. Simply being Black, he continued. The bill signed into law, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act of 2022, was named after the 14-year-old boy from Chicago who was brutally murdered by a group of white men in Mississippi for allegedly whistling at a white woman in 1955, which is still alive today, and which admitted that she lied about this here. His murder sparked national outrage as a catalyst for emerging civil rights movement. Now, after all of these years, lynching is now just becoming a federal hate crime. If he ever told the truth, he told the truth when he was describing the impact that it had on Black America and what it still has on Black America today. But the problem is that everything that he listed is not something that just happened in the past. These are the same things that are happening now. They're crime. Trying to go to school, trying to own a business, preach the gospel, false accusations of murder, arson, robbery. Simply being Black is still our crime. And as I said, in theory, the signing of this bill is great. But the question I ask is, what is this bill going to do for us? Absolutely nothing. It sounds good, just like everything else that they do for us. It sounds good, but it has no weight. Out of all the things that you could have done for us, this is what you decide to do. Why? Making it a federal hate crime is not going to do absolutely nothing. When in fact, every time a black person is found hanging from a tree, the judicial system in America always rules it as a suicide. So no one will face the penalty of a federal hate crime for hanging. This is something that even happened 100 years ago. Listen to what I just said. 100 years ago, a man was found hanging. In 1922, a man was found hanging in an Indianapolis tree, and it was ruled a suicide back then. The birth certificate has just been changed in 2022 that is not a suicide, but indeed it was a murder. In 1922, a man was found hanging from a tree, and they said that it was suicide. George Tompkins, 19, was found hanging from a tree in Riverside Park in Indianapolis on March 16, 1922. Now, you can say what you want to say. These people are smart. They know what they be doing. See, they went to bat for them Asian folks quick. One Asian got hit in the face, and they went and did a whole campaign running on TV about Asian hate, and then laws came in place as soon as this dude here gets in office to protect the Asians, anti-Asian hate laws, right? And what I find ironic about that is that the same Asians that you are protecting, where they are from, their government is ganging up with the so-called enemy to come against you. So you go through all of this length to protect them when they in bed with the enemy. But we people who have been here since day one, 10 toes deep, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 100 years later to the date that this guy, George Thompson, was found hanging from an Indianapolis tree and it was ruled a suicide, you put in an Emmett Till anti-lynching bill that is not going to hold weight. How is it helping the family 100 years later that you reverse that this man here died from murder? How are you going to penalize the people that put him on the tree? Things that we have forgotten. 3 weeks after Minneapolis police officers killed George Floyd. These are things that we forgot. I'm bringing it back to our memory. United States was rocked by a civil unrest that was on scale that many people said it was unheard of since the 1960s. There was a trend that was happening in America in 2020. Malcolm Hirsch, 38 years old, was found hanging from a tree near a homeless encampment he was living in Victoriaville, California. On May 31st, 10 days after that, 50 miles away, a 20-year-old Rob was found in a similar manner, which is hanging, across the street from City Hall in Palmdale, California. Across the country, 27-year-old Bronx resident Dominique Alexander was found hanging from a tree in a Manhattan park. On June 9th and on Tuesday in Houston, Texas, an unidentified black teenager was found hanging to death outside an elementary school. What do all four of these have in common? All four were black, and all four men were discovered to have died suicide, so they say. But yet you put in law, you make an executive bill to make lynching a federal hate crime, when it's obvious that in this country, no one is found guilty of lynching. Because whenever black people are found hanging on a tree, it's suicide. Now, I don't know a whole lot about nothing, but it's one thing that I do know. That if you go and look at the statistics, I want to say that black people are probably the last on the list when it comes to suicide. It's just something that we don't do a whole lot of. Not going to say that we don't do it, but this is not something that we do a whole lot of. Secondly, one thing that I do know, that if we do decide that we're going to kill ourselves, that by hanging is not going to be the choice. Think about this, man. An unidentified black teenager found hanging to death outside an elementary school. A teenager decided, look, I'm finna kill myself, and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take my rope across the street from an elementary school, and I'm gonna find a tree, and I'm gonna throw the rope on a branch that's strong enough to hold me, and I'm gonna put my neck in it, and I'm gonna hang myself across the street from the school, where when these kids come to school in the morning, I'm gonna be the first thing that they see. Make it make sense to me. 3 weeks after the death of George Floyd, which many could consider a lynching, a public lynching, 4 black individuals found hanging in this country, and all 4 was discovered as suicide. This is who y'all voted for, man. This is who y'all put in office. This is the guy that you said wanted to be your savior. This is the guy who told you that if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Now all of a sudden, there wasn't no food. Look, I'm not political whatsoever. I'm a realist, and I know what I see. There was no such thing as food shortages when Donald Trump was in office. There was no such thing as $3 and something gas when Donald Trump was in office. In fact, the economy had a surplus. Unemployment rates was down when Donald Trump was in office. But as soon as this white-haired, slow-talking, diaper-wearing man got in office, everything started crumbling down. Food shortages, gas prices, end up wars happening, and he throwing bone. At least you could throw a bone that got some meat on it. This bone here don't have no meat on it whatsoever. But so many people thinking that it's a great thing. Emmett Till was killed in 1955. He was so unrecognizable that the white people in the town did not even want him to have a funeral. But his mama said, no, we're going to have an open cash funeral because I want the world to see what they did to my baby. And after all of these years, he really think that he doing something. No, he know he not doing nothing. Our people really think that he's doing something because he done signed a Emmett Till anti-lynching bill. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea what we be thinking of. Oh, I got it. We don't be thinking. We allow them to do the thinking for us. Go to a commercial break, a short break. When we come back, we're going to continue with the show.
Shout out the Key Is Me Foundation. Shout out to Sister Petra over there at the Key Is Me Foundation. We're going to be collaborating on an upcoming Hebrew Wall Street Community Fair in Dallas, Texas, Sunday, June 5th. It's going to be a networking gathering event. We want all Hebrew businesses and entrepreneurs to come out and gather and enjoy a good time. It's a child-friendly event. It's a free event to the public. There's going to be some live performances there. You have Lorvins Yapa Q, Travis Snipes, Ayo Ben Yahoo, Simka Yahoo, Isaiah Israel, and more performers will be at the upcoming Hebrew Wall Street Community Fair. So shout out to the Key Is Me Foundation. If any of you guys are interested in purchasing a vendor table, you can contact Sister Petra Israel on Facebook or Instagram. You can contact her and she'll make sure that she can get to you to get to a vendor table.
All right. Please do not forget that Wall Street Hebrew Community Fair that is going to be in Dallas, Texas. I am going to be pushing that, and my plan is that I will be able to see you there. Okay, that is my plan. But going back to what we was talking about with Biden and the lynching law, the thing too, we talked about the teenager that was found hanging outside the elementary school. Now, remember, this was back in 2020, right? And one of the reasons why this was in the news so much is because this is what was trending. This is the thing this was the agenda at this particular time, racial violence. Remember, I told you war is won with wins of battle. And all of these things are battle. This was during the time that they was messing with our mental psyche. This was the mental part of the battle at this particular time. And so this is the reason why they showed George Floyd being choked out in the streets, right? They wanted you to see that because they wanted us to get upset about that because they knew that it was going to cause a civil unrest. One of the best ways to overturn the government is to get the people all aggravated, right? And so at this particular time, because don't think that I'm telling you right now, as I live and as I breathe and as I'm talking to you, there are people being hung as we speak. They're just not reporting it because that's not what the trend is, right? So at this particular time in Houston, when the teenager was found hanging outside the elementary school, that was actually the second in 2 days because a Latino man, as they call it, a Hispanic guy, he was also discovered in what was being described as a suicide. He was hanging. How is it that all of these people decide to kill themselves by suicide? So what good is this law whenever somebody is found hanging? There is no investigative work that is going to go into it. No investigative work. whatsoever. They come out, they see the body hanging, oh, he killed himself. If somebody want to die, I'm sure that they can find a better way to kill themselves than strangling themselves by hanging from a tree. It makes no sense. I want to see the light go out. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to try to hold my breath. No, it makes no sense. But the gatekeepers are all around them. They're proud. And when they talk before the people, they're going to make you proud as well. Because we finally got us a president that cared. This was something that did not happen up under nobody else's watch. It did not happen until we got Biden in office, and he's proud of that. This is part of his legacy, that he is the one that put into effect the Emmett Till anti-lynching law to make lynching, which no one will ever be found guilty of, though, but to make lynching federal hate crime. Let's move on. Racism in America is real. Back in January, I got to bring this kind of stuff up. Remember, the scripture said, woe is to the man who built a city in blood and iniquity. They done built the whole country in blood and iniquity. Back in January, bomb threats at 7 historical black colleges forced students to evacuate. Bomb threats now. Bomb threats. I want you to wrap your head around that. Bomb threats. In America. They talked a little bit about it, but they didn't mention it as much as they would mention it if an Asian had a guy hit upside their head. Remember one of the curses that the foreigner will come up higher than you in a land in which you are already in? And we are always taking the back seat. Bomb threats at 7 HBCU forces students to evacuate. At least 7 historically black colleges and universities across the United States received back-to-back bomb threats this week, forcing students, and this was back in January now, this was 2 to 3 months ago, but forcing students to evacuate a shelter in place while authorities investigate. The threats came amid a dramatic rise in bombings in the United States and follow bomb threats at other U.S. colleges last November. If this is not something that's racially motivated, I don't know what racial motivated crimes are. And it makes me ask the question, because I haven't heard of nobody being caught for this. I haven't heard of nobody being brought to justice for the terroristic bomb threats at these 7 HBCUs. And it make me ask the question, what good is the CIA? My tax money's paying for y'all. What good is the FBI? My tax money are paying for y'all. You need to go do some federal investigative work and find out who did the bomb threat. If you was able to find out that Ahmad Emid Ashad was behind the collapse of the Twin Towers in New York, 9/11/2001, which reached all the way across the waters, then surely you can find out about the domestic terror threats that is happening in America. Nobody has been brought to justice for 7 of them, not one person. You telling me that you can't find one person that is linked to giving a HBCU a threat that school was going to be blown up? You know why you can't? Because it's not important to you. I just told my child just the other day that people put stock in those things which are important to them. So they're not putting any stock in finding who threatened the HBCUs. In fact, I'd go out on a limb to say hell, it was probably the FBI who did it, or the CIA, or the federal government. We already know who the Ku Klux Klan are. This is why no regime before now ever made lynching a federal law, because if you made it a federal law, then all of your federal people would be brought up on federal hate crimes. Your judges, your DAs, your sheriffs, your local police officers, your federal authorities, all of them would be brought up on federal hate crime because they were the ones that was dragging black people out of their house and throwing them up on the populous trees. Now they're just shooting them and getting away with it. I fear for my life. But we always defend these people. We always want to be like them. We always care about what they care about. We always care about what they think when it comes to us. Just like with this, a little bit off topic, but still on topic with the incident that happened at the Oscars, the so-called slapping, because there is nobody in the world that's going to convince me that was real, but the so-called slapping. How many black people have I heard that just make all of us look so bad? Who cares what they think? They already say that we look bad. That's what Hollywood has been doing from day one, making us look bad. Why do you think people in other nations are scared of us? Because of movies that they have seen that Hollywood have produced of us always doing bad things. Even when they put a black man in a hospital, he holding a hospital hostage. John Q. Denzel couldn't have been a doctor saving lives, but instead he was threatening lives. Even when they put us in the courtroom, we in the courtroom fighting for our lives, a time to kill. When white boys took this man's daughter and raped her and tried to hang her, and the only reason she didn't hang is because the tree broke. We always care about what they think. Instead of caring about what each other think. Instead of caring about what we need as a people. Instead of caring about my brother, are you okay? What do you need? What can we do to make it through this thing? If we stop caring about them so much, we can put emphasis on us, and then we can help each other get out of this mess that we are in. But we don't look at it like that. Why? Because the nation of Israel has been done away with. We African Americans now. And we got to act like the Americans. Before we get out of here, I got about 10 minutes. We're going to talk about Biden. Something else that he did just last week while we were asleep. They're not talking about this much at all in the news. This is something that's going to hit us all over at one time. And this is another one of these things that I just can't for the life of me understand why people are not seeing that this is happening, seeing that this is coming. Biden executive order calls for the highest urgency on central bank digital currency research and development. Right? Central bank digital currency. I'm going to read a little bit of this. We're going to talk about what central bank digital currency is. U.S. President Joe Biden called for an urgent government-wide focus to be placed on the research and development of a potential central bank digital currency in his executive order signed Wednesday. This is why we call this executive order. These are orders that this guy is putting in place while we are asleep. The order calls for a full-scale assessment of potential benefits and risk of central bank digital currency, both for consumers and investors, as well as the broader U.S. financial system. U.S. financial system. Biden has ordered the Treasury Department to spearhead the research and report with input from other federal agencies, including the Secretary of Commerce and Secretary of Homeland Security. The assessment is also supposed to determine whether the implementation of central bank digital currency would be the national interest. Now, it's not in this article here. I was trying to find, and I guess I pulled up the wrong article. What I was looking for is where it was explaining how this central bank digital currency value is not going to be no different than the dollar that we already have in our pocket. So that made me ask the question, well, if it's not going to be any different, what do we need it for? Who is it going to benefit? There's no benefit of moving from the standard in which we are already in to another standard if it's not going to be any benefit. So you telling me that a central bank digital currency coin that's got $1 on it is still going to be worth $1, just like the dollar that I already got in my pocket? What's wrong with the dollar that I got in my pocket? The problem with the dollar that I got in my pocket is that it's paper and it's not digital. Which means that when I spend the dollar that is in my pocket, unless if I'm using cash, you don't know what it is that I'm buying. There's no way for you to trace what it is that I'm buying. But if we get away from the dollars, which businesses are already doing, I'm sure there's nobody who have went to a store sometime here recently after all of this here has happened. There's nobody who have went to a store at least once and said and saw a sign that said no cash accepted, credit only. During the time of at the height of the COVID, you had grocery stores saying that there was a shortage of change. And I couldn't understand that at all. I got change that I keep in a jar, and I got quarters and nickels and dimes and pennies that date back to the 1960s. How is there a shortage of change? They're moving away from the money that we know of. They are deliberately collapsing the dollar right before your eyes. And we so foolish, we like, oh yeah, keep giving us those stimulus checks, not realizing that the more money that they printing, the less value our money is holding, to the point that it's not going to be worth anything. Project Sandman, that's exactly what it is. When these nations come together, we don't want the dollar no more. We don't need the dollar no more. We dumping the dollar. When Iran starts selling fuel for other than the dollar, what good is America going to be then? So we got to find something else. And what people don't understand, that the central bank has nothing to do with the government, even though it says Federal Reserve. That's a lie. These are private bankers that have a private interest of taking your money away from you, which can speed up the economy and slow down the economy. It is these private bankers who raises interest rates and drop interest rates. It is these private bankers who decide if you can buy this house or not. It is these private bankers who are saying that this digital currency is what we're going to go to because we got to be able to have control over how you spend your money and even over what it is that you say. Because if you say the wrong thing, they're going to have the power to turn your digital currency off just like the lights. This is where we are. Bible tells us that the day is going to come when people are going to throw money in the streets as if it is nothing. That day is almost here, people. It is time for us to get our affairs in order. Let us lay aside every weight which so easily beset us. We are embarking on a new year. The new year is right around the corner. The new year was not January. The new year is right around the corner. We are about to go into the Passover. After the Passover, a full week of the week of unleavened bread. This is the time for us to replenish and get our hearts right with the Most High. Ahaya, Yahuwah, whatever power it is that you call on, Yah, whatever power you call on, it is time for us to get our affairs in order, people. There's no time for playing. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, I know so many Hebrews are going to be throwing bread out of their house, and that's cool. Do that. But do not forget what the bread symbolizes. It symbolizes sin. Take that week and detach from this world. Get off your social media sites. Be mindful of the things that you watch during that week. Be mindful of the things that you listen to during that week. That's the leaven that we need to be getting out of our life. Be mindful of the conversations that you have when you talk to people. This is the leaven that we need to be getting out of our life, because as the scripture tells us, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. There is no sin that is getting into that kingdom, people. I don't know how many more Passovers we're going to have. We are at the end. Food shortages, money collapsing, crime rates are going up. We're seeing people dying in unheard of numbers every day. As we go into this new year, let's get our minds, our spirits, and our bodies right with the Most High. Time is over for playing games. I am Sha'ir Yeshua Judah. This is Truth Be Told Flex Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. I will be back next Thursday. Evaluate yourself. Evaluate your life. There's one thing that I know about the Most High, Ahaya. He does not treat us accordingly to what it is that we deserve. He gives us opportunity. That's what grace is. Let us not frustrate grace. Let us not frustrate grace. Shalom Israel. Till next Thursday, everybody be blessed. And I'll see you then.
It's all unraveling. It's all unraveling. Listen in case you didn't know, no. It's almost getting close. In case you didn't know, no.
This has been real. We would like to thank you, and we will see you at this same time next week.
Only the ones with no faith that take the vaccines. Step to me with it, I'ma make your back lean. We at the end, new Sodom and Gomorrah. Christ about to come and mop the floor up. Walking up in Louis V with your mask on. Check the me's, man, they about to get their blast on. Prophecy, interpretation, Isaiah 55:11, so it ain't no faking. Crack your dough, it's getting close. I'm here to tell you, just in case you didn't know. Listen, man, in case you didn't know, no, it's almost getting close. In case you didn't know, no, it's all unraveling. Babylon got pregnant with a daughter.